In fixed income investing, there is an ongoing debate over the advisability of investing in bond funds versus investing in individual bonds. Investment professionals on both sides of the argument have persuasively outlined the advantages and disadvantages of either approach. As the analysis has continued over the years, it seems that the only agreed upon conclusion is that the answer ultimately depends on the individual circumstances, such as age, health, employment status, tax bracket, net worth, and investment understanding, and investment objectives of the investor, like growth, income, and preservation of principal. That being said, with the availability of online investing, and after evaluating their circumstances and investment objectives, investors are learning how easy it is to take advantage of some of the benefits of buying individual bonds. Hence, without much publicity, it appears to me that the argument has quietly shifted in favor of investing in individual bonds. In order to understand why this shift is occurring, it is important to first understand both sides of the bond fund versus individual bonds argument. Most writings on the subject have focused on the following investment traits: diversification, reinvestment of income, investment control, cost, interest rate risk, liquidity, and portfolio size. I'll outline a brief discussion of each of these investment traits for both bond funds and individual bonds. First, diversification. Because the underlying portfolio of most bond funds includes many different types of bonds of various maturities, investing in a bond fund conveniently provides the investor with immediate and widespread diversification. With numerous different bonds represented in the fund, the investor's exposure to the default or credit risk of any one issuer is minimized. In my opinion, in order to achieve adequate diversification with the purchase of individual bonds, investors need about $100,000 or more invested in bonds of approximately 15 different issuers. The impact of a default will be greater within a portfolio of individual bonds than with a bond fund because of the numerous and diverse holdings within a bond fund. When buying individual bonds, default or credit risk in most cases is mitigated by limiting investments to essential purpose, high-quality investment grade, preferably single A or better, bonds. Advantage: bond funds. Number 2, reinvestment of income. Bond funds pay interest monthly in a fluctuating amount. Payments are based upon the interest received from the sum of all the investments held in the fund. As a result, the amount of income received varies each month. Because an investor can choose to automatically reinvest income by purchasing additional shares on a monthly basis, low-yielding cash investments are typically held to a minimum. Because individual bonds pay interest on a fixed, semi-annual basis, an investor is generally limited to reinvesting the income in short-term cash instruments until that amount exceeds $5,000. At that point in time, an additional $5,000 bond may be purchased for reinvestment. Advantage: bond funds. Third, investment control. When purchasing a bond fund, investors surrender control to the fund manager to make all investment decisions. An investor's involvement is limited to matching investment objectives and portfolio duration with the information contained in the fund prospectus. In addition, with investment in a bond fund, investors have no control over how much income they will be receiving during the particular period, nor does an investor have any control over the timing of capital gains taxes or determining whether or not bonds inside the fund portfolio are subject to AMT, alternative minimum tax, or are subject to the investor's state income tax. Decision-making responsibility and investment control remains with the investor when purchasing individual bonds. Individual bonds can generate a relatively predictable income with semi-annual interest payments and are redeemed at specific maturity dates. The investor has the opportunity to review the appropriateness of each investment, including the use of AMT bonds and bonds issued from within the investor's home state. The investor purchasing individual bonds is also able to decide the type of issuer, maturity dates, call provisions, and credit parameters for each investment. Advantage: individual bonds. Fourth, cost. A bond fund may be purchased online through a brokerage account, and investors pay annual management fees and bond fund expenses. Shop carefully, because these fees and expenses can range from 0.25% to 1.25%. A word of caution: depending on the bond fund selected, there can also be upfront sales commission or load charged on the amount invested. Loads typically range from 2% to 4%. Traditionally, the cost of purchasing an individual bond was either the broker's commission or an unknown markup to the investor on the price of the bond. Now, individual bonds may be purchased online for an exact price at a flat commission per trade, regardless of the dollar amount of the transaction. For example, you pay a flat $9.95 commission per online transaction with Zions Direct. Online brokerage websites offer thousands of bonds representing the secondary market inventory of many broker-dealers. After individual bonds are purchased, they are held in individual brokerage accounts and principal and interest is received. Call redemptions, if any, are automatically processed, and year-end tax information is provided. Advantage: individual bonds. To find out which strategy may be best for you, bond funds or individual bonds, watch part 2 of our series, A Tale of Two Strategies, brought to you by Zions Direct. To learn more, visit zionsdirect.com.